poetry man. You make things alright. You are a genie. All I ask is for your smile each time I rub the lamp. La 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 la. When I'm with you, I have a giggling teenage crush. Then I'm a sultry vamp. Sultry vamp. Welcome, 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 everyone, from occupied Ohlone land, standing side by side in solidarity with all those struggling to free the land. Yesterday, the people all across the country were dancing in the streets, honking horns and shouting slogans and exhaling and expressing a temporary sense of relief. At the same time, we should be aware that we have a long, torturous road to trod, and there will be many twists and turns and potential setbacks, so we should never become dispirited. The people in the streets are a beautiful sight to behold. And since people were celebrating, I'm going to break with the script and I'm going to give a little something that celebrates that phenomena, you know. A tweet, a thief, a thug, clown in a rug, a tweet, deceit, a lie, a cheat, embellish and broader, a lying disorder, a myth, a fable, a bit unstable, flim flam, clap trap, bunkum, bull crap, an empty wagon, a puffed up dragon, a whopper, a fib, you peep from your crib, a sham, a fake, a major mistake, pathological lie, false flag flying, a grope, a trope, bad jokes, breaststrokes, a grope of a crotch, another man notch, where they debauch over water and scotch, a trumped up story, cock and bull glory, a foot in the mouth for strategy south, pie in the sky, a barefaced lie, pig in disguise, fooling some eyes, playing fast and loose with Jim Jones juice, a masquerade, a Nazi parade, fake great nation, same plantation, a bug in the hall, a fly on the wall, a great big whale, an ongoing tale, a parade in July, another big lie, a wink of an eye, enough I'll cry. A thief, a thug, clown in a rug, a tweet, DC, a lie, a cheat. Time for feet in the street, sustaining street heat. Yeah, so that's the way to get us off to a good start, I think. And thank you all for taking the time to show up and join us with today's episode. Firstly, I'd like to introduce the people who make this possible. The great Sarah Gasser, the maven, communication maven, master juggler, stage manager, par excellence. Sarah Gasser, take a bow. And to my left hand lady, the Zigsters of Lowenberg, the researcher, graphic designer, editor, co-producer, the Zigsters of Lowenberg, Zigi Lowenberg, take a bow.
And the vision behind this project is the town crier himself, also known as the people's poet, and our co-host Raymond Nat Turner, the founder and co-leader of Upsurge and Upsurge NYC. Welcome, Raymond.
Thank you.
Your love is sweet and it's soft. Look how you use those eyes and the way you compromise. Your love is sweet and it's strong. It pulls me in with the tide. And up is down and down is wrong. Go or stay, stay or go. Just be a poet about it. Fall down on your knees. Be a poet if that's what you claim to be. Be a poet outside of your sad poetry. Your love is neither hot nor cold. It's that you can't quite name it that makes me feel old. And your love comes apart when it hits the light. Go or stay, stay or go. Just be a poet about it. Fall down on your knees. Be a poet if that's what you claim to be. Be a poet outside of your sad poetry. Oh yeah. Be a poet about it. Yeah, work up a sweat. Do everything you have not done yet. Be a poet outside of your sad poetry.
On Adam David Miller, adapted from Bruce Bagnell. Adam David Miller, who liked to be called AD in his later years, as he was called as a child in Orangeburg, South Carolina, died peacefully in his home, surrounded by family and friends, this past Thursday afternoon, November 4th. He was 98. AD's first memoir, Ticket to Exile, remembers age 19 being jailed for passing a note to a white girl. Too intelligent for the Jim Crow South, AD was forced to leave, embarking on a long journey through life ending in Berkeley, California. In his second memoir, Fall Rising, published when he was 95, AD describes how as a naval officer he was sent to college during World War II and his struggles afterwards for employment and his success, taking a Black drama group into the Deep South at a time when that was still not done, and an escape from possible violence due to the fortunate appearance of an Army envoy. A.D. Miller taught for many years at Laney College in Oakland, California, and edited while sustaining a correspondence with many Black notables. He never threw paper away, amassing a collection of letters, playbills, notes, and scripts from his time as a program producer at KPFA. Stanford University acquired his archives. In 2007, Upsurge presented our dear ADM, Adam David Miller, with an award at the Bay Area Jazz Poetry Festival in which he performed. He was honored at age 90 by the city of Berkeley for his poetic works. Please look for his poetry books and memoirs.
One of his poems that we've come to love is called Keep Sending Love Out. Keep sending love out where the heart clutches and the soul sings. Keep sending love out into the lighted dark, over the fog-swept sea, or where it runs the risk of dying, dusty death. Send it where there may not be an echo, no return. Send love, that magic potion, that drug of madness, the poet's bane, some fool's delight. Send it where it has never been, a new address. Keep sending, 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 sending. Adam David Miller.
Presente.
You know, one of the things I discovered in the process of helping put this project together is that there are various types of mentors. There are as many types of mentors as there are mentor-mentee relationships. You can have door openers, cheerleaders, coaches, confidants, counselors, and many more, many more. I met Miss Rosner near the 63rd Street Y. One day I was sitting, I had the only table there, a two-top table, and there was one seat vacant. And so she walks in and she comes over to the table and is asking me, is anyone sitting there, but more or less telling me that she is going to sit there. You know, that's the implied communication. So in any case, she sat down, and the thing I discovered is she's reading my writing upside down. and so I was, you know, I was just coming from the gym, so I was very high on endorphins. And so I was in a very good mood, and I was intrigued by her. And so I was determined at a certain point to, you know, firstly find out what her age was. And so I asked her, and at that particular time, she was 102 years old, of 102 years of age. And so I made a decision at that point that I'm not going to leave without trying to press her to be a mentor for me. So I just cut to the chase and asked her, and she pretty much said, get in line, you know. And so the idea is that she's 102 at that point, and she's already mentoring people. She's not going to spend the rest of her days mentoring yet another person. And so then I went to plan B. And so plan B, I said to myself, okay, so what makes her live so long? So I asked her secrets on longevity. And she told me, she said, basically she distilled it to three things. One, in no uncertain terms, she doesn't deal with BS, and she didn't use BS. Two, she's a lifelong learner, because she was reading my writing upside down, and she looked at it, and then she said, you know, not bad, you know, and then she showed me her work, and I was fascinated. Then finally, she told me that she meditates each morning. And so I asked her to explain, you know, describe her technique, which she was gracious enough to do. And I have been using it for the last 2 or 3 years, two years or so, and with great results, I might add. So I'd like to share a little bit of what she's about.
Ruth Rosner has just turned 103. You do the math. We're going to do it for you. She was born 1916.
Wow.
Rosner, sharp as a tack. So we asked her for advice on how to stay young.
I have never stopped learning. I have never stopped caring. And my overall message is that love will overcome hate, greed, lust, and all of the other miserable things we're in.
So she's now 104. And
Kanahara, as we say. Knock on wood.
yeah, so my next mentor is younger. He's a younger man than Miss Rosner. I met him at the legendary 63rd Street Y in New York. And when I first saw him, he had these gloves, these boxing gloves and exercise equipment. And I'm wondering, oh man, what's this guy up to? And so I was curious. And so I also would see him holding court. And so I got to meet him finally, get into his orbit. And his name is Mr. Sidney Inniss. And he just had a birthday this week, actually, and he's 97. And he told me a story about, well, he was good friends with Max Roach. Many of you jazz heads will know Max Roach and other jazz luminaries, but he had an antagonistic relationship with Miles Davis, because Miles was into boxing. And so he said he told Miles, I'm the boxer around here. You need to go play your bugle. And another story that he told me was more contemporary. He was coming to the Y. He goes 3 days a week at 5 o'clock in the morning. That's when he gets there. And so he was heading for the train in Brooklyn, and there was this young wannabe thug behind him and said, "You need to get out of my way, old man." And so Mr. Inniss was going down the stairs, and then they got to the turnstile together. And then this young thug, he says, "Didn't I tell you need to get out my way, old man?" And then Mr. Inniss said, "No, you need to get out my way." And the next thing you know, he had decked him with a combination, and the ticket booth was open, the microphone was open, and Mr. Inniss said he heard them say, "Shit." Oh, so he just left this person. And that's the thing about New York in general too. You can't ever assume anything. You don't know who you're dealing with there. So yeah, that's the man who bestowed the town. I walk in the gym one morning. I had written a poem for him, and I walk in the gym, and he says, "You are the town crier." I said, "Okay, if you say so, I am."
He came to one of our gigs too.
Yeah,
he came to the Brooklyn, the Commons.
Yeah, the Brooklyn Commons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely guy.
Yeah, he's a lovely
Sweetheart.
guy. Yeah.
In another category, in terms of politics and leadership and working class leadership, there's a special man who was in your life for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, that's Mr. Leo Robinson of the legendary International Longshore and Warehouse Workers Union, ILWU Local 10. And he was one of the key leaders in the anti-apartheid movement that was spearheaded from the Bay Area with the longshore workers refusing to unload South African cargo. And in 2004, I had the opportunity to spend pretty much a year with Leo around organizing a Million Worker March that addressed such demands as single-payer healthcare, free education, building housing, affordable housing, just a whole host of issues that people and concerns that people were voicing. Now, in 2004, the ILWU was one of in the forefront of organizing that Million Worker March
in DC,
to
Washington,
DC,
DC.
October 17th, 2004, at the Lincoln Memorial. And one of the things I learned from Leo is he said that the great Harry Bridges, who was communist leader of the ILWU, said that it told them that the working class's power resides in its hip pocket, which meant that the workers could fund their own causes with their dues and other resources, that they can do the things that need to be done. And so, case in point is that he, as a retiree, took about 60,000 of his own dollars to buy T-shirts and other paraphernalia with the Million Worker March logo and so forth. And as well, he taught me about how you can unite with workers of various persuasions and ethnicities and so forth by addressing their material needs, healthcare, housing, and so forth. So that's Mr. Leo Robinson, my man.
Black Arts Movement.
Oh, you are talking about none other than Amiri Baraka. Yeah,
Yes.
Amiri Baraka was very influential in my development in my life. Firstly, when I was a young student at LA City College, I ran across a poem by Amiri, and I looked at it and I said, "What? You could say that in poetry?" I said, "Sign me up. I'm in. Give me my poetic license right now." And so that was my first encounter with him. And then subsequently, as I started to read more, I became increasingly influenced by him. And later, I had the opportunity to meet him and, really get to know him and have a really interesting relationship with him, which was, I was seeking mentorship, but in the African-American tradition or the African tradition, sometimes you can get mentorship and you may not even know that that's what it is if you're not alert and aware and conscious. And so just for instance, Randy Weston talks about when he wanted a piano lesson from Monk, he went over to Monk's place and Monk told him to look out the window. He looks out the window and he's wondering, where's my lesson? And years later, he got what the lesson was. And so Amiri was very cryptic with me, but later on, he saw what I was trying to do and he gave, his kind of nod of approval in a certain kind of way, and encouragement in a somewhat cryptic way, but nevertheless, it was there. So
I think he was slightly competitive with you, actually. And I do want to say in subsequent years after Amiri died, we had the great opportunity of getting to know Amina Baraka,
right,
his wife, and speaking for strong political, artistic women alongside their man. Amina Baraka is a poet in her own right, and we performed with her and got to know her. And in fact, Raymond made a decision to have Upsurge honor her with an award.
Yeah.
So
yes, we
at the
presented
Dissident Arts Festival.
them an award at the Dissident Arts Festival, and it was for being a couple that was very much influencing the arts movement and supporting various artists. They were legendary for coming out to support various artists. And so, yeah, we were honored to be able to present her with that award.
Wanted to also ask you about vocalese artist.
Oh, that's Mr. Jon Hendricks. Oh my God. I had the opportunity to work for Jon five nights over at a jazz club in Oakland, California, Yoshi's. And before that, I had spoken with Jon on the phone because I represented Donald Duck Bailey at one point, and Jon was coming to the Bay Area to perform, and their drummer, Reggie Nicholson, somehow got lost or separated from the party in Denver, Colorado. Mm-hmm. And so when Jon got to the Bay Area, he needed a drummer. So he called me looking for Duck. And so anyway, I got the chance to speak with, one of my heroes on the phone. But fast forwarding, I ended up working for him those 5 nights. It started as an interview that a journalist by the name of Reese Ehrlich was doing. And I was there I guess Reese invited me to come to the interview, and I was there. And so the interview ran late. And so they had to rush from the interview to the gig. That was he and Annie Ross, the late, great Annie Ross. And so I was in the car with them. So I just went in and just started working, whatever they needed, I got it for them. I knew the area, so I knew what food was around, what stores were around. And so I came back each night, for 5 nights. And the thing I learned from Jon, one of the things he was adamant about, he says that whatever way the crowd is rushing, he rushes the opposite direction. Oh. He also told me that he would religiously, like daily, do the New York Times crossword puzzle. And that's pretty evident if you listen to his lyrics. They're very sophisticated lyrics, very incredible storytelling. The other thing is he told me, he uses a legal pad to write on, and he's kind of, said he was kind of, could kind of get it all down pretty much in one shot. Wow. With minimal revision, so. Do
you want to, for people that aren't familiar with Jon Hendricks, you want to just quickly just say what he would?
Yeah. Jon Hendricks is one of the masters of jazz vocalese, which he would take jazz instrumental solos and put lyrics to them, really incredible lyrics that told the story. Like Horace Silver, who was also really one of my mentors who should be in here. Horace Silver at a certain point got tired of Jon lyricizing his music, because when the credit would come out, it would be Hendricks and Horace Silver. And so Horace started doing his own lyrics. So yeah, that's what Jon was a master at. And he was, really fine vocalist, bebop vocalist as well. And he himself had studied or, been at the foot of the great piano master, Art Tatum, where they lived in Ohio.
And he had that group with three
Lambert,
harmony.
Yeah, the legendary Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross, Annie Ross, Dave Lambert, and Jon Hendricks, the three of them, which was very, a very powerful, unique group in that 2 of the members were Euro-Americans and Jon was an African-American. So you had this trio that was breaking barriers, not only musically, but culturally and socially in the US. So.
Wonderful. One thing I remember that he wrote to you, used to have people sign all these pieces of wood. And he wrote a short jazz poem for Raymond. Listen.
Yes, I had these pieces of wood that came from the stage at Kimball's when it was being built. These Chinese carpenters who had cut these squares of wood. And so I got them And so every time someone would come to Kimball's, Stanley Turrentine, Max Roach, God, you name them, Jon Hendricks and Betty Carter. And John signed his to Raymond, a short jazz poem, big letters, listen. And so at some point I returned the favor and I wrote a long jazz poem to Jon Hendricks.
The rhythms remained.
The rhythms remained and bodies rechained to tracks scribbled by cons. The rhythms remained.
The rhythms remained.
The rhythms remained and bodies rechained to chemicals, easing Jim Crow pains in B-flat blues. As in, B flat on your ass, blues. Loan spent, no rent, blues. Wind howling, stomach growling, blues. Baby up and left you, don't know where she gone to, blues. Music's not enough, need some stuff, blues. No gig, no dues, blues. Because masters of modern jazz were owners of new plantations called stations, studios, unions, and dues. Capitalist brokers of the blues who could keep a monk from clubbing, a lady waiting for a new day on their say. Mosquitoes who bled giants, defiled creators, exiled innovators, and kept imitators. Still the rhythm, still the rhythm, still the rhythm, the rhythms, the rhythms, the rhythms, still the rhythms, 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 still the rhythms, 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 whisper through brushes, moan, through trombones, scream.
Great Jon Hendricks.
So in your early years, I know you were inspired politically by another leader, and we're lucky to have her still with us too.
An icon.
And in subsequent to her being an icon for you, we actually got to know her a little bit in the Bay Area, in Oakland in particular.
Right.
Her early years.
Yeah, we had the honor of being asked to perform for the anniversary of Angela Davis's being freed from captivity, being from a frame up. Angela Davis was, I think, the biggest political influence on me, aside from my mom, because one of the things I found with her is this clarity that she had, theoretical clarity, and that was separated from the rhetoric of the time. At that particular time, there was a lot of rhetoric that actually got a lot of people hurt. And misled a lot of people. But she had
done the homework, you would say.
Done the homework and done the theoretical work. Mm-hmm. And so that got me to want to pursue theory. And the short part of it is that I saw a picture of her where she was on a magazine said Red, Black, and Wanted, and J. Edgar Hoover hated her. And I said, whatever she's doing, I want to do some of that, because Hoover was our arch enemy, and so whatever he disliked, we loved. And so she became a real heroic figure for many of us. I think of her as the fourth Supreme, along with Diana, Florence, and Mary.
Let's see if we could hear a little from her.
Just as it was important then, it is important now to find ways of developing popular consciousness regarding the connections between the role that prisons play in relation to social problems like poverty and racism and violence, and corporate capitalism, the rise of a military industry that absorbed and continues to absorb the resources we desperately need to combat poverty and homelessness, a deteriorated educational system, a privatized and increasingly inaccessible healthcare system, and racism and domestic violence, and we could go on and on.
That sums it up, I think, what we're also facing still today. So that's where we have to head into tackling those problems, and hopefully we'll have a little more buoyed enthusiasm behind us now and go forward.
Yeah. So, and then that brings us to the final mentor in this section, which is none other than the late great Abbey Lincoln. When I first saw Abbey, I saw her at Yoshi's Jazz Club in Oakland, California, and I was incredibly broke at that time. And so I saw her that one night, and if I wanted to go back again, I would have to eat popcorn for the rest of the week. And I did eat popcorn for the rest of the week and have no regrets about it. And then later on, we became friends. She became friends with Ziggy and myself. In fact, there are basically three reasons in my mind that Ziggy and I are sitting here together today. Mm. Abbey Lincoln is one of them, Doug Edwards is another, and Upsurge is the third. When I became friends with Abbey, I got a call from her, and I saved this answering machine message for a long, long time. I don't even know what happened to it, but it's like, hi, this is Abbey Lincoln, as if I needed to know. I heard that voice. Do you want to come to the show tonight?
We would go for every set, every show after.
Well, what I had calculated is that at one point she had done 40 sets in the Bay Area, either at Kimball's East, a club in Emeryville, California, or Yoshi's in Oakland, California. And so what happened is that we had gone to 38 of those 40 at that one point. And so like when she would come into town, I would go to her sound check with a blue vase, flowers, to give it to her if she had a 5-night run, 3-night run, and I would get the vase back at the end of it. But she had these flowers, I would go to her sound check and give her the vase. And we were there, if it was 5 nights, we were there 2 sets, 5 nights a week. It was like we were going to work, and we had our tissues and handkerchiefs with her. And then afterwards, she was, her dressing room was open. We could hang out and talk with her, and it was just fun. And I used to call her periodically in New York and see what was up. And the thing I got from her is independence. You know, she was, well, firstly, Thelonious Monk had told her she was a composer. And secondly, she was very independent. You know, she told me that if the terms weren't right for her, she could stay in her apartment and paint. Because she was also a painter. She was a creative. You know, she did a number of creative things.
She would make dolls. She did a lot of things. Yeah.
And she, of course, was an actor, a fine actor.
Yeah.
So
we actually saw her, one of her later shows. She had to go to the hospital at one point, and we visited her there. And it was, I guess, a few years before we heard later on that she was getting very ill, unfortunately. Right. But she was definitely a treasure to us, and she really I felt like she really saw us. We would sit right up front, right underneath her.
Yeah, table
and she
5.
would like look down at us and just smile.
A little impish smile.
She sang with a lot of her songs and her poetry, really, of her words that she wrote of her songs were just deceptively simple, because there was so much soulfulness behind it and so much emotion and kind of a philosophy of life. And I took a lot from that for me. I don't mean to edge in on your mentorship. But, actually, I learned a lot from her.
Yeah, Ziggy wrote a tribute to her. I had been trying to write a piece in tribute to her, but it never seemed to come out right. And I recognized that. And then here comes Ziggy, and she did it. And as someone used to say, I do hope I did it well. And I think she did it well.
Thank you.
Watching a magician pull doves, whispering secrets in her song. Releasing fiery tears, calling us home. Beneath veils of song, we gather in Abbey's house, seeing a wizard bewitch babies cooing as she sings, baptizing our innocence, calling us home.
that sort of bleeds, that sort of bleeds into our next mentor. You know, in terms of mentorship, you can have various types of mentorship. It can be formal, informal. You can even have mentorship with historical figures or mythical figures even. And mentorships can be day-to-day or long-term, now and then or whatever. In this case, the mentorship was from the legendary late, great Doug Edwards, who is best known as a jazz activist, a radio programmer at KPFA, who hosted a program called Ear Time for a number of years. And we were mentees of his. We were his treasured children, if you will. Ziggy and I, you know, we had a formal mentorship relationship with him. And I recall how we would, after every gig we did, no matter what time it was, we would go to his home when he moved to Emeryville, California, after the fire in Pacifica.
We would still go to Pacifica first before, and then we started going to Emeryville.
But after gigs, you know, when we were in Emeryville, it would be, no matter if it was 11 or 12, we'd finish up, we'd come over and we would debrief, you know, talk about our gig, you know, and it would be maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning. And these guys, Doug and Ziggy, were New Yorkers, and we could hang late. And I'd be out.
He was up early. He'd be up early writing, but we could hang out and talk and talk and talk. And he'd be in his lounge chair, smoking his pipe, having a cordial, and inviting me to have a cordial as well, which sometimes I took him up on. But we mostly talked, and then sometimes we would actually, beside the debriefing, we would plan consultations with him and go over and spend an afternoon dissecting where we're up to, what are our goals. And sometimes he'd have a contact and he goes, well, let me get a hold of them right now and talk to you. And he also taught us a lot about being on the radio. He'd have us come on and interview with him. And it was amazing because he would give us pointers all along the way, and we'd get to practice in real time with him and then be invited for other radio. We were on KCSM and then in New York, and it was just invaluable media experience, and just treasured him a lot.
Yeah, he was the type of mentor that is characterized as a door opener, because he opened a number of doors for us, including one. We have a guest, one of our other visitors, if you will, was instrumental in getting us on our first festival date, because that was one of our goals, is to get onto jazz festivals, and then our next mentor was actually instrumental in getting us into a major granddaddy of all festivals. So anyway.
First, can we hear a little bit from some other people that he mentored? And Doug was excellent as a mentor for women jazz artists. Me, for one, he always encouraged me to keep writing. He knew Raymond didn't have a problem with keeping writing, and he would encourage me a lot. He'd say, Ziggy, what are you writing? Are you writing? Keep writing. And so that was very, very precious to me, more so as the years even go on, understanding how important it is that you have somebody that believes in your work and in your writing. He loved Abbey's House, which was very special to me. He loved the piece that I wrote. And I wanted to also credit Richard Howell. It was our producer, a saxophonist, but he also was the composer on that. And it was just a beautiful recording that we were able to do with Richard's masterful in producing. So, but Doug would play it quite a bit, and we were just honored for that. So if we could hear from another woman artist, Melanie O'Reilly.
Stand here and say a few words in tribute to Doug Edwards, the Doug of Edwards. When I came here first from Ireland a few years ago as a singer, I do a crossover of Celtic and jazz, and I was introduced to Doug Edwards by a colleague, Justin Scoville, who used to manage Vince Wallace. And the wonderful Bay Area community of musicians really struck me. And Doug Edwards was the person who really invited us and welcomed us, first of all. And then he in turn introduced us to wonderful African, who also welcomed us with open arms. I was very touched by this, very, very touched. Coming from Ireland, with our own cultural, shall we say, history of colonization, coming out the other end and bringing together my own expression of Irish and jazz. Doug really understood this and had this extraordinary open heart to, I felt, to other cultures, as well as being a fantastic, person and very kind and very funny, actually. And I thought when I had the opportunity to do this show called Jazz on the Bay for RTE Radio 1, I thought this was a wonderful opportunity to bring jazz to the world from the Bay Area. So that's what I started doing. And during this first series, I interviewed Doug Edwards and African, both separately. And it went down incredibly well. I had a lot of great, shall we say, people who wrote in and said how wonderful it was to hear the music and the DJs. And I was very touched by that. My producer and the whole of RTE are sending wishes to the family of Doug Edwards and to say how a tribute to him. And I'm really saying this on behalf of the Irish music community and the Irish broadcasting community. And he brought so much to your own community here. And again, I'm happy to be able to be just one of many people expressing this and continuing on the value that he brought to the community through music, through expression, and through fighting, of course, being so active in human rights as well, isn't that right? So I'm very happy to pay this tribute to Doug, and I hope I'll be carrying the torch on for him and for the people like him.
I'm going to say to you, please continue to nurture this group and enjoy yourself. I'm sure that you will, by the end of the performance, remember my words, this is a breakthrough performance, and you keep your expectations high because I know they're going up. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and prepare to welcome Raymond Nat Turner and Upsurge.
Thank you, Doug. Thanks for all your support.
That's a little taste of Doug.
That really brings up feelings. I'd like to, at this particular time, bring one of our visitors, one of our guests into the conversation on the Doug of Edwards, and that would be Gabrielle Wilson. And how did you meet the Doug of Edwards, and what was your working relationship with him?
Well, first of all, thank you for this lovely invitation. I feel so special to be among co-mentees, and yeah. And I get to hear the background behind the myth and the legends that I've grown up hearing about, which is Upsurge and Richard and Abbey and so on and so forth. But yes, so Doug Edwards was indeed my mentor. I never told him. Like, it was an informal arrangement, and I just knew when the first I met him at the station, I just knew I had to be around him. I had to be around him as much as possible. It was his matter of fact type of manner, his mannerisms. He had his own mind. That was his agenda, his own mind, wherever his own mind was leading him. And I said, oh yes, this is it. this is it. So he's an authentic person. So I want to learn all that I can. And he took me under his kind of wing. I had 2 small daughters at the time. And they always knew I wanted to talk to Doug. Whenever he would call for something, I loved doing research for him. He wanted to research an artist, this or that. I was like, please call me if you ever need anything. And so he started to call me and rely on me. And any time of the day or night, if he would call, sometimes his partner of many years, Cindy, would call, or he would call, and my daughters, they were like 7 and 10 at the time. They'd answer the phone. I say, I'm busy, and they say, it's Doug Edwards, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's Doug Edwards. Like they knew early on, and then he actually taught them. He would correct them in their diction and how they spoke. If I said a word off, he would correct me, and I'd be like, oh, thank you. And I'd say something like, there was something he would always correct me on. Yeah, it was his New York upbringing. Yeah, and his New York upbringing, he was very strict about punctuality and just all of those things. And it was like, okay, here's somebody who cares about what they're doing. And the artist, he just exalted over and above anything in the media. It was like, this is not about you. This is not about us. This is the platform that we hold, this space we hold. It's the artist space. It's the relationship between the artist and the public. You're not important. You get out of the way. You fight for this space though. You fight to keep this space. So
right.
Yeah.
So it was KPFA, it's Pacifica, it's the mothership of Pacifica Foundation radio stations and the network, and located in Berkeley, California, 94.1 FM out here, and now affiliate stations. But he pioneered, I think, bringing on other people in the way that he did, and then mentoring them in the way that he did. It was evident when he would have guests on that he was kind of breaking them in for radio in a lot of ways, because sometimes it was their first debut CD, et cetera, et cetera. So how did you fit into that with your radio experience? What did you remember? I mean, you mentioned some things about his discipline and being on time and all that. What other things maybe from specifically his radio personality that you remember or that inspired you?
Yeah, but as you just mentioned, he was kind of grooming artists. Like he saw more in an artist than they usually saw in themselves. And so to watch that unfold and play even a small part of it, I just wanted to do my little piece to see it all, blossom and take off. And if he thought something of you that you didn't see in yourself, you would end up doing it. And then you had no idea that, oh, he had already planted that seed. He had already told me that was where we are. Like you weren't even paying attention. So after a while, I realized I was a jazz programmer. And, I had been doing gospel for 15 years every Saturday morning. But what he was doing became so interesting. I had this pull, and sometimes I'd be on at 7 in the morning doing the gospel on a Saturday, and then I'd come back at 11 at night to 1 a.m. hanging out with Doug Edwards. And it was just a magical period. But he brought that jazz programmer out in me because of the music and how deep he went underneath it all. And he found like an artist like Melanie O'Reilly, and he didn't need anyone to tell him, this is the next person, or this is a person you should check out. I mean, he didn't need all of that. It's like if he had his own ear, that's all, then he made his own mind up. So he developed the jazz programmer in me, and I said, "Oh, it's the same music. It's the diaspora. It's the conversion of the European and the African traditions, and sometimes the Middle East or the Far East or whatever. But I can still hear that pentatonic scale, and the drums. He put a lot of emphasis on saxophones, yes, but he always had an ear for the time signatures, and I said, oh, if I can just focus on the rhythm, I can put a show together, and I can make a difference. I can play some of the women that I don't, usually hear, or, I can make a show myself. That was just so liberating. And I could bring smart people on. Like, he loves smart people. That's why he was, attracted to your works and your lyrics and everything, because he would have, I'd set him up with people like Shaka Khan, who he loved, but she wasn't really singing his type of music, but she was doing To Sir With Love. I said, you're Sir Doug of Edwards. She's got to be on your show. She's doing a jazz tribute CD, and she's making her debut at Davis Symphony Hall. We've got to have her on your show. And he agreed. So she came onto the show, and all the nerds up in the newsroom, they came running down. Yes, nerds.
Of course.
Doug loved all of that. He loved that.
And he would always say to us, don't forget, you have 59,000 watts, and that's a huge.
Yeah.
It covered a
Yes.
huge.
Yeah.
Do you remember? He would always
Yes.
a lot of power.
And I think you gave me a little too much credit, by saying smart people, because this person, the Doug F, would have chided me because I didn't give you the proper introduction to our other guest. This is Gabrielle Wilson, and she's a doctor of juris doctor. She's got a law degree, in other words, and she studied law in Paris and attended the University of Paris, also studied French. And she's got a master's from somewhere, master's in arts. Where is that from, Gabrielle?
Mills. It's hot off the press. It's not quite. It's not quite dry on that one, but Mills College in Oakland for teaching.
Okay, and then her dad was a groundbreaker in that he was the first African-American to attend LSU Law School. So by way of introduction, at the middle of,
when you're taking her down.
Yeah, I'm taking her down. Yeah. Thank you so much. So, and also I should add that Gabrielle has had the good fortune of interviewing, you mentioned Shaka Khan, but also there's Dee Dee Bridgewater, and also you got a little bit of Abbey too. So
that was something. She was so warm at this small venue. I met her, and I thought I would ask someone to set up an interview, and she says, "Give me the pen." Like I thought I was gonna have to call her agent and go through a whole bunch of hoops, and she was like, "Give me the pen," and I was like, "Okay," and I hand her the pen, and then she says, "Where do you want me to write it?" So I gave her my phone book, and it was her personal. I called her. Hello, I'm like, Abbey Lincoln. Yeah. She was like, "Yeah, honey, who is this?"
That's her.
That's Abbey.
That's her.
Yeah.
Sweet. Thank you so much, Gabrielle.
Our dear friend, Clairdee, 21st century jazz vocalist and educator and activist, I might add.
Yes.
Before we get into what I like to do, one of the things about Doug is that he was very highly partisan. If you were one of his artists, you were the cat's meow, and other people knew it one way or the other. I remember when I first heard the name Clairdee, it was from the Doug of Edwards.
Definitely.
You need to check Clairdee out. And when he could be so commanding, and I'm of the Jon Hendricks school, whenever somebody's pushing me hard in one direction, I go the other way. So
I hear you.
He said, "You need to check Clairdee out." And so I'm thinking in my mind, who in the hell is Clairdee? And I don't need another diva. I don't need to meet another diva. I just don't. And long story short, I meet Clairdee, and she is nothing like my mind had conceived her. She's altogether a totally different kind of artist that we are very fond of. And I understand why the Doug of was quite fond of Clairdee. And as the Doug of used to do on his radio program, Ear Time, and she sounds like this. If we could get Sarah
thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
that's really sweet. You know, I failed diva training. So
we're so glad.
I decided never to go back. It's just not me. So you all will forgive me.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe you could while we're getting one of your tracks on your and by the way, congratulations on your latest project, your latest recording, Love Letter to Lena, right?
Thank you.
Right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And what a fitting tribute to another icon.
Yes.
How did you first meet the Doug of Edwards? How did you first come in contact?
I was fortunate enough to be working around the Bay Area. I was kind of new in 1986, early 1987, and I was working at Pasan Lounge and Yoshi's, doing various gigs with people like Ruth Davies, the bassist, Babatunde Lee, Mark Little, Jon Handy, and Jimmy Robinson, the drummer. And that's how I met Doug originally. And I noticed, wow, this guy, he comes to all these people, not just mine, but so many performances. And he was actively engaged in what Bay Area musicians were doing. And I gotta say this before I forget, the one thing that I remember always, and he was the first person to say this, is that we should not refer to ourselves as local musicians.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Resident artists.
Resident artists.
That's right.
Because it just lifts you up. It's about respect.
Right.
Not just for yourself, but it allows the audience to know that you're not just some person who just happened to walk down the street and say, hey, I can sing. You know, we have a craft. It's about respecting the art.
And he would say, you have to live somewhere. So every artist has to live somewhere. You're a resident artist. Yeah.
Exactly.
Great. So let's see if we can hear a little from you. We have a CD of yours out with us, and Sarah's going to cue it up.
Oh, I know I could share it with you if you want me to. If you're going my way, I'll go with you. Moving along the highway, rolling along the highway, moving ahead so life won't pass me by. Oh, I got a song. I got a dream, and you know I got a name. I got a name.
Oh, how beautiful that is. Oh, we wish you really good luck with your future ventures. Keep us posted on everything that you're doing.
Thank you. And it's exciting always to hear from you guys and knowing what you're doing. You make me proud like a mama. You know that mama proud?
Yeah, it cuts both ways though.
Exactly.
Can I ask you a quick question though?
Sure.
How did you I got a name. What is there a backstory there?
There is. When I chose to do this recording in honor of Lena Horne, everything came from my parents, who were very politically active, and they made us proud to be human beings, not just African Americans or Black people. They wanted us to be American citizens. And one of the songs that Lena Horne sang was I Got a Name, and I decided to change it. You may recognize the song, or at least the title, as one of the songs that Jim Croce made popular back in the 1970s. And I wanted to I Got a Name. I'm very proud of who I am, and I want everybody to know that. So that's how I decided to do that particular song.
Great, wonderful, I love it.
Another guest who was close with Doug and also did a lot of work with him, Kristy Juliano. Welcome.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Great to see you guys, actually.
Yeah.
It's been a while, right? I mean, we were at your festival. I want to say 98 and 99.
Yeah.
2 years.
We had our CD release in 99 at the festival.
Our first CD, All Hands on Deck, and we had some family come out for that. And Doug of is how we got to know you. And so you want to chat a little bit about your experiences working with him?
Well, I met him when he used to do remote recording for KPFA at the Cotati Jazz Festival. He was good friends with Billy Browning, and my late husband Kenny used to play in his big band, and so we became friends. He used to come over to our house and hang out. This was when he could drive still. In the early 80s. And then my late husband started the Benicia Jazz Festival, the first street jazz festival in Benicia. And when he passed in 89, I started taking it over. And the whole time, Doug was our MC for the Benicia Jazz Festival before the Vallejo Jazz Festival. So for 20 years, Doug and I have been kind of anchored at the hip, putting, preparing for these jazz festivals. And he was, he would call me regularly and say, want to come over and talk about the next jazz festival? And I'd say, yeah, okay, I'm ready, because I was still working full time at the time, and putting this jazz festival together was something that I needed a kick in the butt to, get into early in the year rather than late. And so he was on me about it, which was great. I loved that about him, and I loved going to his house and just kicking, all ideas around. And then I'd come back, trying to put kind of a schedule together and the layout and all that kind of stuff. And we talk about what would be the best lineup. And what was really important to him in terms of who I brought in, because I had my own ideas too, was that the integrity of the festival needed to be, that it was jazz. That it was a jazz event. And that having that integrity of that event, because there were other people that wanted to come in that weren't, that were like smooth jazz kind of artists. And he didn't want to go in that direction at all. It was really important to him that there was an integrity about, it being jazz. The other thing too, that he really wanted to make this the jazz festival in the Bay Area that had resident artists.
Right.
And so that was really important to him. So he was constantly introducing me to, different artists. We would go to clubs all over the place. I would come and pick him up, and we would hit a lot of clubs and listen to a lot of groups. And he was very inspiring. And there were many qualities about him I admired. But mainly, well, so many. He was a person of integrity himself. He was a classy guy. He always dressed well. I mean, it was really important to him how he dressed, you know, and how he looked. And he had a cool hat on always. And we laughed a lot together. I told you the other day, you know, we laughed a lot, and I appreciated that. You know, he could laugh at himself and he could laugh with me, not usually at me. That wasn't, you know, what he did. But he would laugh at himself, and he would laugh at things we would talk about. And he laughed at Habert for sure.
Habert Houston, she's referring to as a publisher of a magazine that was based in the Bay Area called
Jazz Now.
Jazz Now magazine. Right? That's right.
So I learned a lot from him. He was a wise man, a gentleman, and a gentleman. You know, he was all those things for me. And I don't think I really, like Gabrielle was saying, I don't think I told him enough how important he was to the festival, but to me personally. And it's sad to me that I didn't get the opportunity enough to tell him how much I appreciated him. I think he knew, but still.
I believe he knew, you know, and I think this is kind of partly why we're doing this, you know, because it's instructive for us, you know. I think COVID-19, for example, and other things that, you know, eat at our mortality have taught us this, you know, that we have to do it now. You know, now is the only time that we own. And so I think, you know, by you doing this now, it's a great lesson to all of us, you know. And one of the things I would add is something that Gabrielle mentioned. He was very punctual, and he took a lot of pride in having never been late for his radio program.
Right.
Oh yeah, he would say that. That's true. He was really a stickler for certain things, but it taught us a lot about discipline and respecting ourselves. Like Clairdee was saying, gaining respect from other people, but carrying yourself in a certain kind of way. So, well, thank you for presenting Resident Artists. Personally, thank you so much. It was a big treat to play at Vallejo Jazz Festival twice, and it was a lovely, lovely labor of love that you did there. Beautiful.
Yeah, it sure was. It was it was really our launching pad for festivals, you know, and just being able to go and with the confidence that what we were doing was presentable, quote unquote, you know, because
well received too.
Yes. Thank you so much. You know, we forever grateful to you.
Yeah. Thank you, and thank you for this opportunity to express my love and respect for my mentor, Doug, because I believe he hears me and hears. And so he's here with us.
Oh yeah, and you know, because when he invoked your name, you know, it was with that authority. You need to talk to Kristy Juliano. That's it. So we knew. So we
gotta get
knew.
your press pack together.
Yeah.
And I got it.
That's right.
Yeah, you do.
I know when we were preparing, that was really fun. You know, two things that came out of our rehearsal. It was really fun to see you. You were holding up memorabilia from the festival. Now you're wearing a T-shirt with the festival on it, which I love. And we saw our old promo picture, which was hilarious to see. I mean, it's still a classic from Jim Rutt. He took that picture, a great photographer, then in the Bay Area, now in the Midwest. But the other thing is that we're going to segue now because we're having another guest on to talk about a large impression and friendship that Raymond had with somebody, and this is his mentorship, and this is his son. And it turns out that you also knew Donald Duck Bailey well, and we're having Donald Bailey Jr. with us. So thank you again, Kristy, and stay on, and let's hear from a little bit about Duck before we bring Donald on. We're going to hear a little bit and see a little bit about Duck.
p.m. A plan and some action thought. Okay. The plan is that you get a group that you like and present. I really enjoyed the performance that you did with Yoshi's that time. That was your idea, and it worked. It was original. If you get the good musicians that you like that are able to express what you want them to do, then your original approach to how the setting should be would be the one that captures audiences, I think. I don't think you should worry about too much how other people did their things, because you seem to have a really different, exciting new way to present things to people. So I think I would start there. I'm kind of busy. I'm kind of busy working, so I wasn't able to get back at time to call. Saturday, 12:17 p.m. Oh boy, it looks like maybe Monday or Thursday we can get together, and maybe we can talk a little bit. But anyway, the biggest original thing that I've experienced from you guys is seeing you guys together. That really gives me a big thrill. Sort of gives me a boost just to know that you guys saw it through, and that you're trying to make it and making it. All right, the future is yours, the young people. Get on out there, poet. You got it. So it's your original expression. You are the leader. Just be like Carmen and make sure they don't mess with you. Get your stuff done. All right. So, anyway, I wish you a nice gig. If I don't see it, you got all it takes, my man. All you got to do is go with what you got. Monday, 11:20 a.m. Hey, poet, I just want to say I appreciate your involving more jazz in your program. On the other hand, like I said before, I think you should go with your true feelings on all the matters that you are, because you are the poet of the social thing, and I think that's one of your strongest fortes. I'm not saying that I'll be able to listen to it or whatever, but I think that it's really good and powerful because it's true. What you're saying is true, and I think if you go with all the strength that you have on everything you go, man, you'll really knock them out. So, and they take what they need, and leave the rest there. You dig what they said? You know what I mean? Go for it, poet, all the way. You and Ziggy, and I'll meet you at Nations after the gig. Okay. So that's all I got to say. You can do it, man.
The game is brought to you by our sponsors, Scandal, Scandal, and Scandalous, specializing in gates, Watergate, White Watergate, Contragate, and gates to come. You don't have to wait for a gate. And Bribe Masters. This bribe's for you and your crew. Fat Cats break huddle in the shadow of their own end zone and line up in a triple right formation. Fullback in motion to the right. Pitch off right tackle. Right guard pulls. Lay is caught in the backfield. Gets a block from Congress. Right guard gets a tremendous kickback block on the worker's strong safety. It's an end run. An end run. He's to the 10, 15, to the 20, 25. Fakes, jukes, cuts back at the 40, 45, 50, 45, 40, 35. Stiff arms. One man to beat. Touchdown, Fat Cats. The Fat Cats are putting this game out of reach. They're taking the crowd out of the game.
It's a game, they're both the same. Different names, both the same. Warhawks, Fat Cats, and lame ducks. Sacrificing lives for bucks. It's a game, different name. Their greed knows no shame. No shame.
We got a two-party system, but there's just one hitch. Both of these parties are parties of the rich, and the lesser of evils is the evil of lesser. Freedom of choice is choosing oppressors, choosing between bailout schemes, visions, trips, and base pipe dreams. Fulfilling servings of pie in the sky. Feast on the good life after you die.
The replay clearly shows that he stepped out of bounds. What? I can't believe it. What? There'll be no challenge. What? There'll be no challenge? What? There'll be no challenge?
That was the game from Upsurge's second CD, Chromatology, and that was the CD that Duck was commenting on, where he said he loves creative work no matter what type it is, and one of the things about Donald Duck Bailey that I became immediately aware of, he was thoroughly creative in all of his endeavors. When I first started working for him, he hired me as his representative, manager, or whatever the case was. And we would walk, and when we would meet, sometimes he would have bells on his shoes. And he was just, he set up his drums differently, he dressed differently, and he had a different idea about art. You know, he was very expansive in his outlook in terms of what he would present. He brought us to the Monterey Jazz Festival, and that's how we appeared at the Monterey Jazz Festival. I think it was in '99 with our group Upsurge. And he was a big believer in what I was trying to do, and he encouraged me unselfishly. And I remember when I first started working for him, I was also called myself taking drum lessons. And he backed his van up and unloaded a set of Remo drums for me. And that became the drum set for the group that I would later found Upsurge, which is in its 30th year now. And so, I just can't say enough about what I learned from working with him. He was another person who believed in punctuality. He would, if he had a gig, he would pick me up, maybe 2 hours, 2.5 hours before the gig. And we would get to the venue. He would buy me something to eat. We'd set up, then he would buy me something, we would sit and eat. And then after that, he would study language.
Japanese,
Italian, he was really interested in languages. And so whoever the band leader was would walk in, and I could see from being on both sides of that equation that there was a sense of relief that the drummer is here, set up, and ready to go right now. And so he believed in that. He modeled that. And the other thing is about paying. He always said to me, he called me poet. I don't even ever know if he used my name, Raymond.
Oh,
And he said, poet, you have to have your envelope together, be ready, you know, at the end of the night when, you know, your cats come up to you, you have to be able to get people paid. And then he also told me about his experience in Japan, where when you showed up for the gig, they paid you right then and there. And so from that became our practice of when our band showed up and set up, they got paid.
Right. It was one of those things again about respect, because he had, you know, been around when so many people at the end of the night have to wait and wait and wait for these club owners to settle their receipts, and maybe you get paid and maybe you won't get paid, or maybe you get paid less than you originally thought or contracted for. So he had really been through that period, and as a band leader, or you know, coaching you as well, not to repeat that and not have to have people, you know, basically waiting around in a form of groveling just by waiting around and having to wait beyond they're packed up and ready to go. So it was really about respecting us as artists, and we took that really seriously into our own work as you know, leaders of Upsurge.
Yeah, and I just wanted to do two things. One is give credit for the voice of the sports announcer on there. That's none other than KCSM's and KPFA's the great Greg Bridges, one of the fine voices in all of radio. And the answering machine messages were that was the way Duck and I communicated a lot, oftentimes. And one of the things I took a lot of pride in was my ability to make him laugh. He was very good friends with the great Art Blakey, one of the seminal figures in jazz with his Jazz Messengers. And so I would call Duck's answering machine, you know, a lot of times he wasn't there. And so I would love to get the answering machine because I could go into Art Blakey's voice. I'd be like, Duck, you swing, you got great time, you can play, but the way you set the drums up, and a club owner, nobody's gonna hire you. It looks like you don't know what the hell you're doing. And he would just roll for that. He would just, you know, because far from not knowing what he was doing, you know, he was thoroughly respected in the jazz community. And I met so many great jazz artists through working for him. I met Dizzy Gillespie, Jimmy Smith, of course, Stanley Turrentine, on and on and on, but Max Roach, it goes on and on. So,
and he was very respected in his work. His craft, first of all, was extremely respected, which we can have our special guest talk about a little more. But he was also really a dear friend to both of us as a couple, and often kept us going in some difficult times. He and Doug, we would go to sometimes when we weren't quite making it and getting along, and they would give us a lot of coaching and help. So.
And then one of our favorite things was to meet and have donuts and coffee, and we would talk about everything. Or after a gig, go to Nations, you know, get some greasy fries, you know, garden burger, you know, which is a veggie burger for me, and pie, you know. So, you know, I'm going to just say this, and then we bring his son in, who's also a fine drummer in his own right. His father had told me that many years before. I think working for him was one of the greatest moments in my life, you know, because
it's been hard to lose our loved ones and our mentors, and they're very special people in their own right, and then very special to us. So Raymond did say it's something my father said when he stood up at our wedding, and he said, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. So Raymond had said he wasn't sure he'd be able to get through tonight. And I think Duck, came at a special time. Somebody in the chat just asked us when, actually my sister, thank you, Batya. How old were you when you started working with Duck, or just what period of, he wasn't super young. It wasn't then, it was out in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
He's already had been a parent and divorced, and it was a few years before we met. So it was in the 80s.
Yeah, it was just before we met, actually. I went from having no jobs to having 3 jobs. I was working with Duck. I was working at a bakery, and then I got hired at the library. So I had 3 jobs. Right. And
actually, one of the funny stories is you had just recently gotten the title of his manager,
right? And
he wanted to do this special. He was a true artist. He wanted to make a business card, but his business card had to have metallic on it for the rim of the drum, and then it was called All Hues Productions. That was the name of that he wanted to present for his different bands, because he had different size ensembles, different configurations.
Well, because he believed in internationalism.
Well, I know the name, but I wasn't. Yeah. I was first saying that why he had a production company and not just Donald Bailey drummer.
Yeah,
because he was a band leader, had a few different ensembles, and All Hues Productions is because
he had this internationalist belief, and so he wanted all these flesh tones on this card representing different colors. These business cards were over $1,000, and so I was in charge of it. I got the artist that delivered the drums and got the
lettering.
Everything was right. Mm-hmm. And so I was the person to sign off. These cards were over about $1,000.
This
over
is
$1,000.
Pre-digital, so everything was paced up and laid out.
Yeah.
Mechanically.
And so we went. I had just met Ziggy, and so we went for me to sign up on the cards.
Downtown
so Ziggy
Oakland.
Looked at the cards, and what you see?
I looked at the cards, and it was representative, manager representative or something. And I'm looking, and I'm like, uh-oh, the R and the E are reversed. There's a typo on it. Yes. And I was in the publishing industry then, and I was like, used to looking at text carefully. And I said, Raymond, there's a mistake in it. And I was afraid kind of to say it. I mean, he's a new guy, I didn't want him to think I was insulting him, but it was like, I knew how much this job meant to him and how much he respected Duck too. And I didn't want anyone to go out, hang out there and look bad. So it was worth taking the risk and saying, somebody made a mistake.
Right.
And forever after, I think that was part of the beginning of Raymond falling in love with me. He told me that later.
So anyway, we could talk on and on. But we have
special guest.
Yes, the son, Donald Bailey Jr., who's a very fine drummer in his own right. And, someone we've had the great pleasure of working with at the KCFM Jazz on the Hill Festival.
Yeah, we did.
Hello, Donnie.
Wow, thank you so much. And as I will refer to you, because that's all I know you as, poet. That's what Dad said, poet. Oh yeah, poet's got it covered, poet. Listen, thank you so much for doing this, but I do have to ask, is Nations still open?
Yeah.
Well, when I come out, we're gonna have to go to Nations. I can't, every time I came into town, it didn't matter what hour of the night or dad, it was always something at Nations that he wanted. And he made it, I want to go get some greasy food, because it was another place in Emeryville, I think it was Hobbs or Hobie's.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And Hobie's was more like the health food place.
Oh.
Well, we'd go to Hobie's, but no, I don't want to go to Hobie's. I need some grease. Go over to Nations, man. So yeah, I definitely will have to go see Nations. As far as it influenced itself, but I shared that moment with you earlier because it was hard, it was hard hearing Dad's voice, but glad that we're doing this. but his setup, all I can say about his setup, I used to run into Willie Bobo. Don't ask me why. I drive from Los Angeles to San Francisco. Somewhere in the middle of that trip, I'm going to run into Willie Bobo. He's at a gas station or he's at a rest stop or something. And he said, man, I used to call your dad the protest drummer. I said, why you call dad the protest drummer? Because, you know, he set them drums up so nobody else would ask to sit in. I said, that's not why you set those drums up like that. Because if anybody's seen Dad, you know, snares this way, stop that. That was just his way of playing. But he was adamant. No, he didn't want anybody else to sit in on his drum. But true to his character, man. That the drum set up. And I remember asking Dad as he was aging and he was having back problems. I said, well, you know, if you set the drums up flat, it'll be a lot easier, you know, to get to and get around. Never. I'm not doing that, you know.
Wow. He was determined.
Yeah, but he was determined. And listen, those lessons that I to this day show up to gig 2 or 3 hours early. And the reason why you do that is, number one, it also gives people a sense, like you say, a sense of confidence when you show up, because nothing's worse than 15 minutes before the gig and there's no drummer. And the drummer is rushing through the door to set his stuff up and get ready to play. Well,
we've had that.
What? That's how you're going to play. So the whole thing about getting to the gig a couple hours early, you sit down, have something to eat, got your place all set up, you're relaxed. So you play relaxed, and the band members, the club owner, everybody's relaxed and happy because you took this time out to show up and be. It's a sense of professionalism too.
Brilliant. Yeah. And he played always like that. I mean, he was doing so much, but he always looked so cool.
Yeah.
But it's so much was going on. You'd like hear all these little things, and he'd always have different little like straw bells and these and percussive things. He was just an amazing cook. He was a cook in the kitchen.
I mean, exactly. Well, it's a good thing you could cook on them drums, because cooking was not one of his fortes. Spent a lot of time on the road. Dad, you know, yeah. He spent a lot of time on the road. So, of course, he would love to eat out at all these other places. But you talk about creating stuff. When Dad passed away, I found these instruments, and I kept looking at this one thing, and I said, man, what the hell is this thing he's got? It was a toilet brush that he had something taped to one end, because like I said, I know I've seen this before. It was a toilet brush to clean the bowl. I mean, it wasn't the actual brush used in the bowl, but he said, I'm gonna take this toilet brush and he had something else attached to the end of the toilet brush. So it was like a dual instrument. You know, he had all like just something he would see. Oh, I can put that in my drum set. And somewhere along the end of the night, before the end of the night, I'm going to use it for something, you know.
Right.
Just so creative, from drawing flowers on his clothes to, you know.
Yeah.
Exactly. And he would wear these interesting hats with no, just the brim part and nothing open. He would like cut things open and wear all different kinds of things. I remember something that you've told me a lot too, that he would say he was very specific about soloing, because, you know, you hear a lot of people and they would take long solos or drum solos, and he didn't often take a drum solo. And often, even if he did solo, or later we would see him on other instruments, because he'd love to do that when he was leading. He would pick up other instruments and be practicing and playing other instruments. But he used to say he talked to you a lot about the concept of soloing.
Yeah, well, one thing, I'll say a couple of things. One, people need to know he was a world-class harmonica player, and he was on several soundtracks, Buck and the Preacher with Harry Belafonte, Sidney Poitier, and another one, I can't think of the name of it. And also he was on a Gap commercial.
Dante's Twin Peaks.
Okay, that's it. Yeah.
Walk with Fire or something like that.
There you go. And so he had that going for him. but as a manager, I at a certain point I had a certain influence on him, which is kind of amazing, and I encouraged him to solo more. I mean, he didn't need to solo because anybody who had their ears open could hear how he was swinging the band, and you couldn't keep your body parts still. You would move into because he had all kinds of independence going there, swinging but what I knew from a commercial standpoint is that's the way things are going. This somebody who's soloing is, they're going to be, oh, this person is so great. And my mission working with him was to, fight like hell to make sure that he got his due as best I could with my limited powers. Yeah. And so I encouraged him to solo a little bit more, to let people see that, he could solo, but he didn't need to solo. The stuff he was doing all during the tune, but if you had your ears open,
right,
you got it.
Yeah.
So let's take a listen to a little bit of.
He said that.
Oh, go ahead, Donnie.
The whole thing about soloing, he said he never practiced. You don't practice a drum solo. Mm-hmm. At that moment, whatever's in here comes out on the drum set. Mm-hmm. That's what you play. Because I went to hear, and a lot of named cats they actually play the exact same solo in every venue that you go see them at. So, they would rehearse these things, these great licks. All that stuff is great from a technical standpoint, mm-hmm. but from a musical standpoint, because you might have had a fight with your old lady before you came to the gig. Well, that's literally how you're going to play. So whatever you're feeling at that moment, Dad said it's supposed to come out. And there's no such thing as a bad note, or wrong thing. It was meant to be.
Oh, wow. That sounds like Miles.
And to this day, I can go all night and not play a drum solo. And guys are like, it's not about me. It's never been about the drums. It's about making the artist feel. That's why he could play from anybody from Joe Pass to Carmen McRae.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And everything in between.
Okay. Let me just share one just quickie.
Okay. We gotta wind it up.
Speaking of which, we drove 60 miles to see Dexter Gordon, and
yes,
your father was on the drums with Carmen McRae. That was the gig. And second set, when Dexter came on the bandstand, he did that gig. Those are two different gigs. Those are two different jobs to accompany Dexter and accompany Carmen. So, but we need to hear some and see some.
All right. We have a little taste of when he was with Jimmy Smith, and then we're going to come back and wrap up for the evening. Thank you, everybody. But take a little listen.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks,
thank you, Paul.
Donnie.
Thank you, Ziggy. Oh. Thank you, love. Thank you.
We're going to do a longer thing in the future.
Yes, I will be glad to be part of it.
This is one of more than 20 albums Jimmy Smith has recorded for Blue Note Records in recent years. And this, on the Verve label, showcases Jimmy backed by a big band playing Oliver Nelson's arrangements. Both records, in fact, all his records, reveal the one element that is stamped on Jimmy's jazz character. Critics have used terms such as fiery enthusiasm and relentless drive to describe this element. However one may put it in words, this quality is very much Jimmy Smith. Here it is again, right now, with Jimmy. Quentin Warren on guitar, and Donald Bailey on drums, in what promises to be a very wild wind-up to this meeting. A roaring takeoff on Dizzy Gillespie's The Champ.
Conversation.
A little taste of Duck, Jimmy Smith Trio, 1962, Drummerworld. So we could go on and on all night with our memories and recollections and lessons learned. And I know Raymond has a lot more to say. What we can do is tell you that you can stay on. We'll have a little after party for those that want to stay on and talk. In the meantime, we want to let everybody know that we will have another episode, and the next episode, number 5, is Teachers. It will be Sunday, December 27th. We hope you can join us then, the same time, 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern. And we want to thank Sarah Gasser so much for all of her help with all this media and lining everybody up and being behind the scenes and gathering all the cats, herding cats, as they say. And thank you all for coming. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank all of you for coming. And, I hope, as the Doug of Edwards would say, we do hope we did it well. And we hope that this is something that is in sync with where we're headed, what we want to see the world look like. So Thank you so much for spending the time with us.
Okay. Stay on and say hello to us. Let's listen to a little more music.
John O'Bailey's harmonica.
Yes.
That tune is called Invitation, and it was recorded by Donald Bailey in Japan, where he recorded a number of albums.
take us to the after party now.